This is the iPhone 12 Pro, Apple's newest and best iPhone, well, besides the Pro Max. This thing's got 3 cameras, a LiDAR detector, an automated portrait mode, and even a simplified manual exposure slider. Today, I'm going to be doing a little test/review of this phone's camera system to see if in 2020 you can take good wildlife photos with nothing more than your iPhone. I mean, I think we all know this isn't going to be a great wildlife camera, right? I mean, come on, the telephoto lens is only 52 millimeters. But I want to take it out anyways, and I just want to test it out and see what kind of wildlife shots can we get on the iPhone 12 Pro. Alright guys, we are headed to a local park here where there are some geese and ducks at this little pond there. With this only being a 52 millimeter lens here on the 12 Pro, I'm suspecting that, you know, with only 52 millimeters as the max optical zoom, beyond that you're just cropping the photo in so it loses quality. I'm suspecting this is the only place we're possibly going to be able to go and actually get decent wildlife shots, because there's nowhere else where you can get within a 52 millimeter range of a wild animal really and not have it run away, besides, you know, very habituated geese at a park. So this is probably going to be our only shot at getting some really good shots with the iPhone 12 Pro. I'm excited to see how this thing performs, and we're going to head out right now, guys. Alright guys, we have arrived here at the park. It looks like there's a lot of ducks and geese out here, so should be able to get some good photos. Got the 12 Pro here. Hopefully it's going to perform. I have some suspicions that the portrait mode won't really work well on it. It hasn't worked well on my dogs, because obviously it's designed for humans, but I was still hoping it would work on animals well. We'll see. We're going to try it out here, and maybe we'll come away with some good shots, maybe not. Yes, I did put a case on the phone since the unboxing segment, because I hate to break these cameras just because I wanted it to look good for the video. So yeah, we got a case on it now, but we're going to get out here and try to take some good wildlife shots. Alright guys, so as you can see, we've got all kinds of ducks coming in here. I'm going to go into the camera mode. I'm going to put it on portrait for the start. We're going to put it on portrait and 2x here, so it's going to be zoomed into the telephoto lens, 52 millimeters, and we're going to try to take some portrait shots. We'll see how this works out, but yeah, we've got a huge selection here, as you can see, ducks to shoot, so we'll see. Alright guys, so portrait mode is not working well as I suspected. We'll still look at those shots to see how they came out, but it really was not working too well, so I'm going to switch over to standard camera mode, standard photo mode, and still use the 2x telephoto lens, see if we can get some good shots here. So switching over to that now, and we'll see if the results are any better with the telephoto lens not in portrait mode. As I began to shoot in the standard camera mode, I realized that the results that I was getting were actually not better, and upon reviewing some of my images, decided to switch back over to portrait mode, because in the end, portrait mode actually yielded the best shots. Now, after finishing up with the iPhone, I broke out the old ADD to get a few comparison shots between an iPhone camera and a real professional DSLR camera. Now let's head back to the studio and take a look at those results. Alright guys, so here we are back in the studio, and I've got the images up on the computer, and honestly I must say I'm shocked. I am shocked by how good these are. I really am. Now, once I've went through them, I've actually noticed that the portrait mode images were actually the best ones. They didn't look the best on my phone. They looked like the lesser quality images. They just didn't, I don't know, they didn't look good on the phone at all. I didn't think portrait mode was working out at all, but now that I'm back here, far and above, the portrait mode images were the best ones. So definitely, you know, portrait mode, it isn't perfect, and you'll see that throughout these images. It didn't hit it every time, but when it did hit it, it was good. And it looks almost professional when it did hit it. So we're gonna get into it. Here's the first image, and yeah, this was with portrait mode, and this was one of those times that, you know, it didn't do so good. It just totally missed the mark. You can see it's got this sharp cutout line around the duck here that tried to cut it out, and it's not in focus at all, and then the rest of the background is blurred. It just missed the mark totally. But this next one then is good. This was with portrait mode as well, and yeah, this is just so much better than I thought. You can see it really cut a pretty darn clean line around that goose right there. I mean, look at that. And for those of you that don't know, portrait mode on the iPhone 12 is an automated thing. So it's not like when you're using a camera and you have your aperture and you have your depth of field, and so it's going to focus on something. Stuff that's farther away, you know, out of that depth of field will be out of focus. It's not like that on the iPhone. It's an automated thing. So it chooses a line where it cuts out around, and it's going to choose your subject, basically what the camera thinks your subject is, and it's going to make a cutout of that. And that is going to be in focus, and then it's going to blur everything behind that. So this is basically a cutout that the camera did on its own in the iPhone, which is really impressive how much it nailed this. You can see a little bit missed right up here in this area where it hits this duck. In the background, you know, missed a little bit there. And you can just kind of see a few rough spots along here for sure. But overall, man, it did a pretty good job. And you can see it even fades out down here like a real, you know, manual camera would, like a DSLR or something, mirrorless camera. So it did a good job. And it also, as you can see, retained detail really well. I didn't expect it to have this much detail in the face, in these water droplets down here. A really nice blur on the background. So I'm really impressed with this image. I mean, this looks like something that would come out of a DSLR with a crappy kit lens on it. Obviously, that's not the best. You know, you want a DSLR with a professional lens on it, but, you know, given the fact that this was an iPhone and nothing more, like, that's pretty good, considering this was just a phone camera. So I'm very impressed with this. I mean, these are edited. I did edit the ones that I really like out of this. And so this isn't like the raw image, but the phone shot this at ISO 100, 6mm f2, and 1/120th of a second, and that was automatic settings totally there. So yeah, that's impressive. Now moving along, we have multiple bad images here. Yeah, these are just, I mean, you can see that it was trying to cut the duck out and make it sharp, and it just didn't work. Here's one that I did edit. This one was sharp enough. It's still not perfect, but it did make a cutout. Missed a little bit here on the beak, missed on top of the head a little bit, but for the most part it still worked. And you know, the automated portrait worked decently well. Like I said, missed in a few spots, but not terrible. And retained some pretty good quality in the duck here. So portrait worked well on this one as well. Now we're going to get into where the images that were shot with the standard camera mode were taken. And this is my problem with portrait mode, what you're going to see the difference here in quality. So here is your portrait mode image. Here is your camera. Here's your standard camera, not in portrait mode. And you can just see how much more detail is captured. Even in the duck, that's the thing, you know, the subject, the thing that the portrait mode is supposed to put in focus. There's so much more detail with the standard mode. And I think that's just one of the things you kind of have to deal with portrait mode. It's not going to nail it. It's going to get close, but it can't be perfect. And it's going to lose some detail when you use portrait mode. So that's unfortunate, but you know, it's especially if you get it just right, if it really nails that focus and that cutout on the duck, it still doesn't look terrible, the difference in quality, but it's definitely noticeable. You can definitely see the difference between this portrait mode image and this standard mode image, and the difference in quality and how much higher quality this standard image is, especially like if I zoom in there on the duck's face on both of them. It's just night and day, the difference in quality there. So now moving along here, lots more that I didn't like, but here's one that was pretty good. Yeah, this, again, portrait mode worked pretty well here. Cut it out pretty darn well. There's a little bit of odd stuff going on around that feather there and a little bit around the top of the head, even on the tip of the beak, but for the most part, portrait mode worked to cut this duck out and you know, provide some background blur back there and all that. Overall, I am happy with this image. It's not perfect, like I said. It could be, obviously it would be better with a professional setup, but coming out of an iPhone, I mean, this portrait mode has impressed me. I wonder how many times I said portrait mode in this video. Comment below at the end of the video, and if you get it right, I'll do nothing because I'm not going to go through and count them. Anyways, moving along here through the next few images. These are all portrait mode too, and you can see again, it's getting pretty good here on the cutout. It's not perfect, but it's pretty darn good. Better than standard mode. Here's standard mode, and these standard mode images aren't necessarily bad, and they definitely retain more detail, but it doesn't compare to that professional look that you get with portrait mode. It really gives that look of a professional camera that creates bokeh and has a depth of field, makes your subject stand out that you would typically get out of a DSLR or mirrorless camera. You really get that look out of portrait mode. If the portrait nails it, which it very, very rarely does, but when it does, when it nails it, you do get that professional look, and you just can't get that in standard mode. We've looked at all the iPhone ones now. Now we're going to get into a few that I took. I think I only edited one here, but that I took on the Canon 80D DSLR with my 250mm lens. And you've heard me complain about that lens before. It's not the sharpest lens you'll see in these photos. It's honestly not that much sharper than the iPhone lens, which is sad because that's supposed to be, you know, a decent lens there, but no, it's really not. So it's not that much better than the iPhone as far as sharpness goes, but you'll see the difference in what comes out of a DSLR camera, out of a real camera versus a iPhone. Even with the portrait mode, you'll see the difference here. So let's get to this image and I'll show you exactly what I'm talking about here. Alright, so here it is, guys. Here's the image, and you can just go ahead and look at this and you can tell that this is not on iPhone. You can tell this isn't even in portrait mode on iPhone. This is a DSLR image. This is taken with a professional camera setup. And the way you can tell that is just literally the depth of field on this, and the focus and the way that the use of aperture, adjusting the aperture, has created some depth of field on this image. It's as simple as that. I mean, portrait mode, like I said, does do that some. It shows a little bit of that depth of field and creates that professional look a little bit, but not like this does. With an image like this, you not only get some foreground blur down here, but you get that background blur, which obviously you got on the iPhone with the portrait mode, but you don't get as much background blur on the iPhone, and you don't get as much nice bokeh, and then especially, like I said, that foreground blur down here is just, that's something you only get with a DSLR or mirrorless camera. You can't get that on an iPhone, and it adds so much to the image to have that ground blurred right there. Like, you can imagine if this down here was in focus, like it would be if I'd taken this with the iPhone, it just detracts from the image. It's a little bit distracting and takes the focus away from this duck here. So yeah, as great as the iPhone camera has been using portrait mode when it nails it, the iPhone just can't capture what a professional camera can capture. It can get close with portrait mode. You know, it can simulate what a professional camera would look like, but it can't get all the way there. It can't nail that look that you get with a professional image. So I would say for a random casual person, you know, that's going out and just shooting images for fun, as a hobby, and they don't want a professional camera, they just use their iPhone, it's great. You can use portrait mode on the iPhone 12 and come out with some pretty decent images. But for a professional setup, the iPhone 12 is not at the level that it would need to be a professional camera. You know, there's been this sort of question that's been rising over the past few years, and even, you know, with the iPhone 12, it's been a question that people have asked, can this be a professional camera? Not quite yet. They're not there yet. I do believe phone cameras can get there based off the images we've seen, but I don't think that they're there yet. And especially not for wildlife photography. I mean, this was just not, for all the duck images you saw here taken with the iPhone, they were all very close up, and even with that zoom on the lens, I just couldn't get close enough. 52 millimeters is just not enough to get good images. So unless somehow Apple can fit 100 millimeters or 200 millimeters in the iPhone, which I highly doubt they will ever be able to, you're never going to see an iPhone produce wildlife images. You just can't, because you can't get that reach that you need for wildlife. And even 100 or 200 is honestly short for most wildlife. You typically need, you know, 400 to 600. So despite the fact that I think we were able to get some really good images out of this with the portrait mode, I still don't think it is in any way what you could call a professional camera or in any way acceptable for wildlife photography. Maybe if you want to go out and do it for fun a few times and you know, test out what your iPhone can do, yeah, sure, it'll work, and you may be able to come away with some nice images, as you saw. Not bad images by any means, but you won't come away with professional images. And that's the big takeaway from this, is that the iPhone is not quite there for professional yet. And for wildlife, it's not there at all, and it probably never will be, because Apple can never put that range that they would need to put into the camera. They just can't pack 200 millimeters into an iPhone, so it will probably never reach that point. And like I said at the beginning of the review, I kind of knew that. I knew this wasn't going to be a wildlife photography camera, but I still wanted to try it out and just see what I could get. And honestly, I'm pretty happy with the results. I am surprised that I came away with the quality of images that I did come away with. So yeah, that's my quick review on the iPhone 12 Pro for wildlife photography, guys. That is going to do it for this video, guys. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one. This is a little bit different than what I typically do, and honestly than what I'm planning on doing in the future. Probably won't do many more like phone review type videos, but you know, I got this new phone. I never buy the new phone every year. Usually do it every 3 years or so, and it just timed out that I happened to get the newest phone at the time that I could go ahead and make this video on it and do a review on it for wildlife photography. But in the future, I wouldn't expect to see any videos like this more on the channel, any more phone review type videos. So I hope you guys did enjoy it. Thank you all so much for watching. If you stuck around this far, if you haven't already, please do not forget to like and comment down below. Let me know what you all thought, and share this video with your friends. Most importantly, as always, don't forget to subscribe to be entered for that 1,000 subscriber Manatee Swim giveaway. It's coming, guys. We're going to hit 1,000. I guarantee we can do it. And, you know, one of you guys will win that. So that'll be linked up here if you don't know what I'm talking about, and at the end of the video. But that's going to do it, like I said, for this video. And I will see you all in the next one.